Okay, good morning everyone. My name is Dirk Zeiko from Bedford Consulting, and I'm happy to share with you today some of our experiences when implementing Anaplan at SoftwareONE. So happy that I have three other colleagues here by my side who will lead you through this virtual webinar this morning. So on the left side, you can see me. My name is Dirk Zeiko. I'm the country manager of Bedford Consulting here for our DACH region. And happy to have on my side John Byrne and Andre Fraser, both people from SoftwareONE, one of our customer who decided, I think, something like a year ago to go with Anaplan, and we have been the company which supported them in introducing and building their Anaplan model. And on the right side, my colleague Serkan Emiroglu, who will lead you through a quick demo of Anaplan to show you what is possible when using Anaplan. So please let me tell you some things about Bedford. Bedford is a exclusively Anaplan partner here for EMEA. We are now established for more than 10 years in just implementing Anaplan models and supporting our customers in using Anaplan. We are proud to be Anaplan EMEA Partner of the Year for the 7th year in a row. So we are really used to do Anaplan implementation, support our customers, doing trainings and everything what's necessary when using Anaplan. We have more than 250 existing customers. We have the experience of more than 400 implementations and built such Anaplan models. We have the biggest team of Anaplan experts, more than 80 Anaplan certified experts. We use, when implementing Anaplan models, one proven methodology which is given by Anaplan. It's called the Anaplan way, which assures successful delivery of the models which our customers use for their business plannings. Our geographic focus is especially UK, Ireland, and DACH. And now we started also having some business and offices in the Nordics, Benelux, and in South Europe, like Spain and Italy. We give you support. What kind of support would be necessary when using Anaplan? So we would be on your side if you decide to choose Anaplan as your business planning platform. So now please let me introduce you to SoftwareONE. Then just give you some numbers that you can imagine what would it mean. SoftwareONE is a big Switzerland-based company, software company, which is providing a leading global partner who provides end-to-end software and cloud technology solutions for other enterprise companies. It's a big growing company. So when they started their business over the last 10 years, they had a dramatical growth. So they need flexible and agile tools to do their business plannings. So now I would like to introduce you to Andre and John, and I would like to start with our conversation and ask you, John, please tell a bit about what made you decide for Anaplan, and for what are you using Anaplan now in your day-to-day business for planning?
Yeah, just to explain my role at SoftwareONE a little bit, I am a group business controller with SoftwareONE, and I'm the model owner. So I work with Bedford on the model architecture, on building and managing the model, but I'm also heavily involved on the business side, gathering requirements, creating mock-ups, mapping out processes and so on, and making sure that I'm aligned with both management and end users. What do we use Anaplan for? We use it for profit and loss budgeting for about 86 regions. We have about 180 users, about 70 of which are finance team members who do the actual planning, and 110 which are country managers or global managers who are reviewing. To give you a bit of a background on where we are coming from, so previously our budget tool was a in-house development Microsoft Analysis Server cubes with write-back functionality. And our requirement was basically to build a tool which planned the full profit and loss process. So revenue and GP across various channels, personal expenses, selling and admin expenses, and so on. We had two quite large pain points. One was in the personal expenses, planning employees who were moving between cost centers. And also we have some quite large global service delivery centers, and we needed to be able to distribute the costs from those global delivery centers to the many different subsidiaries across the world. And our main pain was that previously we had, for example, for the movement of cost centers, we had people on two sides who were planning in separate spreadsheets. And when we came and consolidated the data at the end of the process, we often found that they weren't aligned. So what we needed from a tool was to introduce a workflow type system where somebody, for example, we would have preloaded our personal expenses, but then somebody requested a movement. And when that movement was then approved, there was an immediate impact on the personal expenses in the P&L budget. So compared to the past where we had everything done separately in spreadsheets, and only late in the process we found out that things weren't aligned. In this process, we were able to introduce a workflow process where which had an approval process, and basically everything was automated, everything happened immediately, so the numbers flowed through to the P&L and so on. We also had the requirement that our cost center structure and our sales channels can change quite a lot from year to year, and we wanted to be able to budget in the new structure, but also to be able to view data from previous years in the new structure so that we could have a year-over-year analysis. And in order to do that, we needed a tool where we had an internal mapping so that we could upload in the existing structure, but using the internal mapping, we could then see the data in our new budgeting structure, if you like, in the new hierarchies. Another requirement was to have a top-down target, so we could provide each country with their budgeting target, but still we gave them the capability to budget bottom-up so that they could then compare the bottom-up budget to the top-down target. We wanted to preload as much as possible, so we pre-fill salary increases, commission payout percentages, social expenses, and so on, but we still gave them the possibility to adjust. So we wanted that flexibility within Anaplan. And also within SoftwareONE, we have some countries where the network infrastructure is not so good. So a pain point in some of our countries in South America and Asia and so on was speed. So we saw Anaplan as an option because it promised speed, flexibility, and automation. And we saw that long term, we would have the ability to take development in-house. So as I said earlier, we did have in-house development earlier, but when I say that, I'm talking about IT development, which was quite slow and so on. But we saw with Anaplan that we could probably take quite a lot into controlling itself. which would give us far more flexibility.
If I would try to summarize what you said, especially at the end, the key points for your decision to choose Anaplan is first, flexibility, second would be speed, and third, the ability in your business department being able, on a long-term view, being able to react on things which happen in your day-to-day business, not to depend on either your own IT or external consulting like Bedford. Do I understand right?
Yes, and one year later, we are at the situation where we can build new reports, we can adjust our reports, we can look at modules and so on, and analyze formulas, how things are built and so on, and amend them if necessary. Where we still need to do more homework ourselves is around architecture and how we build models and new content and so on. But that's more criticism of ourselves, if you like. We were under some time pressure to develop the initial project. So in the initial project, we kind of concentrated on getting the tool built and so on, and didn't so much concentrate on the knowledge transfer. But since the initial project has been finished, we have now moved over to that knowledge transfer stage, if you like. Yeah.
From my experience, also with other customers, it's one of the key points being successful when using Anaplan is what you spoke about, knowledge transfer. Can you give us a picture how much people on your side are using and working with Anaplan? I don't mean it for business planning, putting in numbers, but using it really as a model builder. So what you described, changing, for example, a report, changing a mask, changing a chart.
So we have 4 license model builders within the license model builder licenses, and all of those people sit in the controlling department. Yeah, so they would all use.
Okay, next question would be what kind of opportunities and also might be challenges has SoftwareONE recently and how has Anaplan been able to support you through this?
So with challenges we've had, of course, the big one, COVID. So for us, COVID was both a challenge and an opportunity. So we faced the same disruptions as everybody else, but we did already have the necessary hardware and software so everybody could transition smoothly into home office. But of course, it was a new way of working for everyone. At the same time, we are a software license reseller. So we had the opportunity to be able to assist customers who were maybe not so ready for such a move to transition more smoothly. And for example, taking a single product, if you remember at the time, Microsoft Teams was quite suddenly became very popular, and we are a reseller of Microsoft Teams, so it was also an opportunity for us. Other kind of opportunities and challenges, we've had some quite large acquisitions over the last few years. So 3 or 4 years ago, we had an acquisition which more or less doubled the size of the company. As you mentioned earlier, we've also had rapid growth. So when I started about 9 years ago, we had, I think, 800 employees. Today, we are at about 8.5 or so. And recently, we've had the Russian war in Ukraine. So we have about 100 employees in Russia and 50 in Ukraine. So our main priority was obviously for the safety of our Ukrainian employees. So we, some of them evacuated to Poland, others stayed in Ukraine. But again, here we had sanctions, which a lot of our customers are multinationals and so on. So we had to help them navigate around those sanctions. And again, customers in Ukraine, for example, had the issue that they wanted to move quickly from on-premises software to cloud software, and there we were able to help them as well. So those were the kind of challenges that we faced. How can Anaplan help us? So as I've mentioned, we've been using Anaplan for about a year, and we've mainly been focusing on the profit and loss budgeting. But long term, we do see potential to use Anaplan for risk analysis and scenario planning, so that I guess you have two types of situations. You can have crises which come from nowhere, such as the Russian war and so on, where you have to suddenly be able to be flexible and be able to plan different scenarios and so on. And I can see Anaplan, because it's a flexible tool and because the programming is in the hands of the controlling team itself, that that Anaplan would be a good tool for that. And then you also have your other scenario planning or forecast planning, where you can basically play around and forecast different scenarios and so on. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. One more question from my side. How important is resilience within the finance team during these challenges you face in your business?
So I think it's a question for me. Just to give you some context, I'm the head of group controlling at SoftwareONE. So I am. For me, what finance actually means is we need to be a business partner. So that's the way how I see the finance, the finance organization, our duty in the company. And in this area, I really think we need to support the management and the decision takers with all of the tools and the data and the models which they need to take the right steps to bring the company into the right directions, and that we ensure that we take the right decisions. And for us, especially being in the tech environment, which is moving super fast, I have the feeling we constantly sit in some kind of a transformation, because beside of the movement in the markets, we have new products, new streams which we have to integrate, and which we also have to try to integrate in our financial modelings and our plannings. We also then have impacts from outside, as John has said, like COVID. I mean, it has hit us like everybody else as well, in the middle of our planning process. And then we also have the other political impacts which we need to model, and also to see what is the impact for the overall company. And here it's important that we act really fast, and that we also have the right data information there in a good and also convenient way, that we're able to take these decisions. And I think here Anaplan has helped us a lot during the planning phase also, because I think we were in a lucky situation that our people around the world, I mean, we had around 90 people who really had to do plans for 2022, and they were all sitting remote in their home offices in India, in South America, in the US, and this has worked perfectly, even though they were not able to go to the office and really work in their normal environment. And also during the planning phase, I had to say, because we have met during our budget process in Switzerland, a couple of us, to actually go through these plans, and we were able to also work ad hoc with the tool to take certain decisions then at that time already. So I think, well, in a summary, I have to say, I mean, flexibility and speed is super important, especially in these times, in these times, and you have to act as fast as possible and take the right decision.
My impression when we spoke the first time, maybe a bit more than a year ago, sometimes I realize, especially conservative German customers have problems to think about using a cloud-based tool like Anaplan for their financial planning. When we spoke, I think this never has been a problem. Might be one of the reasons that you are, that's your own business selling cloud software to other customers, or why is it no problem for you putting your finance numbers into a cloud-based tool like Anaplan?
I mean, it's our business. You're right. I mean, for us, it's a key value driver. The whole development in the tech industry, everybody going to clouds. But we also see that there's no issue in terms of security. So I think we've done the right checks, like all of the other customers as well. I think we were a little faster than some more conservative customers, because at a certain time you have to take the decision, do I want to go to the cloud, yes or no? And I think today, as you see how the development is, that everybody goes to the cloud or even needs to go to the cloud. So other big ERP providers, they force you to go to the cloud now, and I think it should not be such a roadblocker anymore like in the past. The future is in the cloud, and I really have to say, for us, this was a big advantage, because speed-wise, we were really able to do everything remote in a time which we would not been able to do in the past. So also remodeling, redoing the stuff during the budget process, having everything live. I mean, that's the advantages you have if you have a cloud solution.
Maybe a small story from my side. I think you might be the first customer we never met before in person on site, but implementing such a big project and such a planning tool, I think without major problems. So the cloud technology is the only environment which would make anyone able to do such a project. Yeah, let's have a look in the future. What would be your future plans in using of Anaplan? What more ideas do you have? What could you imagine would make sense for you in the future?
So our profit and loss budgeting story hasn't ended. We after this year, we did a feedback round with end users and so on, where we got some new developments and so on. So that hasn't ended, but we also see several possibilities, such as forecasting, sales commission calculation, sales commission modeling, and so on. And where there is a difference between our budgeting and the new forecasting model would be, for example, that we would, in the forecasting model, we would need to be able to import more data using, for example, Anaplan Connect or Anaplan CloudWorks. And I actually saw that Bedford have a call coming up on Anaplan CloudWorks. So I'll be definitely attending that to hear more about it. But yeah, we would be connecting our data more with Anaplan than in the past. So for our budget tool, we did have, past year's data and so on, which we uploaded using CSV files at the start of the data. But if we are going down the road of forecasting, for example, we will need much more regular automated data inputs and outputs, so that the data can be used elsewhere in our BI environment and so on. But yes, we see various different options that where we can use Anaplan. Yeah.
if you might think about other use cases, for example, beside those things you do now, can you imagine that there would be a change in how to implement such other use cases? Would you say that you, as SoftwareONE and as in the finance team, would be able to do more of this implementation work yourself? And what kind of support would you still need?
Well, that's already started, if you like, on the budgeting model, because we have more taken over more of the maintenance on that and making changes and so on. On newer projects, we aren't quite where I would like to be after 1 year, but that's not a criticism of Anaplan. It was more of a resourcing issue, if you like. But where we will definitely still need assistance is at the beginning of the project, thinking about the architecture and how exactly we would like to build. I think there you need a Bedford or an Anaplan or somebody advising you on how exactly to go about it. We had some issues with our initial model around sparsity, because we weren't really aware of that sparsity can become a problem with the model. But overall, yes, our knowledge has increased, so we will be able to do much more. It won't be us telling Bedford build this or build that. We will be much more involved than previously. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just an explanation for the audience. Sparsity is when you use and build your model and you use dimensions, what we call dimensions in a multi-dimensional model, and you have big dimensions. So you would create a big room of data which you could address, and also the Anaplan tool is quite mighty. Everything in the physical world has an end, so you have to use and you have to be experienced to build this in the right way, not to make your model slow, just in some simple words. So thank you for your impressions at this point. Really interesting, I think, not only for me, also for other in the audience. I would ask you to stay in this session for some minutes. Now, in 1 minute, I will hand over to Serkan, who will give us a quick demo of Anaplan and show what would be possible. After this demo, there would be a chance for the audience to give us questions, and I would ask you to stay and maybe answer those questions if they would go into your direction. Okay, so Serkan, now I would hand over to you and ask you to give us all a quick demonstration of the capabilities of Anaplan in an FP&A environment.
Yeah, thank you, Dirk. First of all, I want to share my screen. This will take a second.
We can see.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, maybe just also a quick introduction from my side, and of course, welcome to everybody. My name is Serkan Emiroglu. I am a solutions consultant here at Bedford Consulting, and as Dirk mentioned before, I want to give you a quick demo about Anaplan, and I want to cover some of the topics which we have heard before. For that, I have prepared these contents. So first of all, I want to give you a quick introduction into the Anaplan UX. That's the user interface which an end user will use in Anaplan. And after that, we will cover some topics like top-down revenue targets, where we want to set up some revenue targets by region as a CFO. And after that, we will do some bottom-up plannings in a revenue plan and in a workforce plan. And there, especially, we want to see how these approval steps we heard before can be covered by Anaplan. After that, some financial statements, and here we will see the income statement, and what I want to show is how the data is linked together. So, for example, if you make some changes in our revenue plan, how this will affect our income statement and how the numbers will change there. And as a last topic, what we call the management reporting, there I want to show you a report pack which you can use, for example, for your management meetings or other purposes. And of course, during my demo, if you have any questions, feel free to write them in your chat box. So in this GoToWebinar window, you should have an area where you can enter your questions. I will try to keep an eye on it and to answer them if I see them. And if not, as Dirk mentioned before, we will have a Q&A session at the end where we can cover them. Okay, so with that said, I will just change to my landing page. So we are already connected to Anaplan. And as I said before, I just want to give you a quick introduction into the Anaplan UX. We have heard this also before. Anaplan itself is a cloud-based platform which allows you to create apps for the different purposes in your company. So, for example, for an FP&A application, for a supply chain, sales performance management, to name some of these as an example. And also, Anaplan is a multi-dimensional system where you can create your modules and your dimensions. Just to show some examples, we have here at the corner, for example, to highlight my company by region, which will then split it to different countries here. And of course, all of these hierarchies will roll up automatically all data to the parent elements. We can, of course, have different time dimensions. So we can talk about years, quarters, months, weeks. It depends on your requirements. And in my demo application, which I'm using here, we will see the fiscal year 21 as our plan year. And what's of course more important is different versions of the data. So to speak about actual forecast and budget data, you may have some source systems which you want to keep. We can use these data as your actual data for history purposes and also, of course, for planning purposes like in rolling forecast, for example. We can create versions like a forecast budget. And what's more important in the current times, what we also heard before in the interview, we can work with scenarios where we can create scenarios and compare them to different versions. Everything what you are doing in Anaplan is controlled by a security concept, so you can be aware that, or you can define by your own which role should see which contents, so you can decide which role can see which pages, and inside of a page, which data might be seen. So for example, if I'm a country manager for Germany, I will see only my Germany data, and I will not see the data for UK, for example, like we see it here. In my demo environment, I have some type of an admin role. So in this demo, we will see all the data, but in your system, of course, it will be different depending on your roles. To finalize or to end up my introduction, just some more impressions for you. If you want to compare, for example, Anaplan with a tool like Excel for your planning purposes, you will have only one sheet for one use case. It's different like in Excel, where you have different templates for your different regions, for example, or your different products, cost centers, whatever. In Anaplan, you will always work with these dimensions, and by changing one of these selectors, of course, the data will also change immediately. The reason for that is in Anaplan, we have always a real-time connection. So even if your colleagues, your managers, or whoever will work with Anaplan makes some adjustments in the system, you will always see immediately the current version of your data. Yeah, I think for the moment it's enough for an introduction. And with that said, I will go back to my landing page, which I want to use to run you through our different topics. Again, please be aware, I will use different roles. So we will move from a CFO to a country manager to a product manager, just to see some different sides of working with Anaplan. But of course, in your environment, you will have your role, your security permissions in use. So with that said, we can start with our top-down target setting. And as I mentioned before, I'm now running this top-down target setting as a CFO of my company. And I have now the possibility to define some targets by my regions. We can see it here on the left side where we have our regions, Europe, North America, Asia, and South America. We have already defined some growth rates for my different regions. And these growth rates are then copied down to the countries of my different regions. So in my case, I want to make a little adjustment. So I want to decide that I want to change my growth rate in Europe from 5 to 7%. And when I hit the enter button, you will see the change we will make immediately. So for my countries below of Europe, we have now 7% as a growth rate instead of 5% what we had before. As a CFO, I can also see my prior year sales numbers. So for example, if we keep Germany as an example, we have here 15 million euros in sales last year. We have now a new growth rate of 7% defined, which will give us an initial target of 16.1 million euros for Germany. I can now decide if I want to hold this number or if I want to overwrite it. In my case, to make it more specific, I want to overwrite my Germany number, where I want to say instead of 7%, I want to have 8%, and I get a new final target for Germany of 16.2 million. As you saw, the targets of the remaining countries didn't change. So this is only one change what I did for Germany, and France and UK still has the same final target. With that, we can now change the role. So as a CFO, we have defined our target for the next year. This is 16.2 million. And now in a bottom-up approach, we want to plan our revenue numbers as a country manager and a product manager. For that, I can open my revenue planning mask here, where I can see I'm still in my country Germany, and I'm also running my version for my budget planning for this country. First of all, I can check my price book. And here again, I have some different measures, which we call line items Anaplan, which I can use for my pricing. On the left side, I see my product structure. So in my example here, we are selling servers. So we have 3 different types of servers. And here we can see our prior year pricing. And to make some of these adjustments, we want to change our view. That means we want to have a specific location. So for example, Berlin, and with that we can now define our prices. In addition to the prices, we can also talk about costs. So these are, I will say, high-level assumptions for cost and price. But of course, in Anaplan, you can make it also in a more detailed way. But for now, I think this will be enough if you define it in a high level like this. So because of the increase of our raw materials and the production costs, we need to change our unit costs for this specific product here, for example. So at the moment we have defined 105 euro. We will change this one to 115 as an example. And for our sales price, we need also to make an adjustment, as we have now in higher costs. We want to increase it by 25%, for example. With that, we get a new price of 150 euro per unit for this type of server. We have a new cost, and with that, we have a new margin of 35 euro or 23% if you want to see it in a percentage number. With that given, we can now define our revenue forecast for that we have here different line items again. So we can define a unit, a unit which we want to sell. We can see our unit sales price, gross sales revenue, and so on. This will be made by a monthly input. So for each month, we want to define the units which we expect to sell for next year. And as I said before, of course, we can also make it on a weekly, quarterly, or maybe daily basis. It's depending on your requirements. So to make some adjustments, I want to define for April, for example, 2,000 units. For May, I want to define 2,500 units, and so on. And always by entering these numbers, you will see, as we saw it already before, all the calculations will be executed immediately. So you don't need to run any processes or whatever to get your results. If you want to analyze your data in Anaplan in a more detailed way, you can always use your right mouse button for that. So for example, if you want to have a look at these 300,000 in gross sales revenue for April 21, I can select this cell. I can use our drill down function of Anaplan. And on the right side, I see now a more detailed view of my calculation. You have heard it before. Anaplan is not a tool where you need to use programming languages, codings, or whatever. So the goal of Anaplan, or what Anaplan wants to offer for you, sorry for that, is that you can work with formula, which is very similar to Excel, for example, where you can make your calculations. And with this drill down function, we can now see that we are multiplying our unit sold with our unit sales price. And also we can see the data, the number which are used. So in this case, 2,000 units and 150 euro as a sales price. If you want to make it in a more higher level way, so for example, if you want to drill down through our company view, we can select, for example, the total company. We will now see for April a new number in revenue of 16.7 million. If I select again my drill down here, I can now see my different regions which I have in my company. And here I can see, for example, Europe with 6.5 million. And here again, you have the ability to drill down your data to analyze your data more. So if I drill down into Europe, I can see my 3 countries again, where I can see Germany with 570K. I can then drill down into this and I see Berlin and Munich in this case. And again, Berlin with 300,000. And if I select this one, we see again the same view which we saw before. If I go back to Berlin, I just want to show you something more here. In Anaplan, you have always an history of your data. So that means if you have an entry like here, we did it before for the units, you can see a different, you can see an history with different ranges. And if I select, for example, my last 24 hours, I can now see at what time which person did which change in my system here. And of course, if I need it and if I want it, I can write my number back if I have the right permission for that. Okay, so for the moment, I'm good with that. So I have defined my revenue target as a CFO. Now I have defined my revenue plan as a country manager and a product manager. And now I want to see some financial statements. For that, I will first run my reporting summary. So in Anaplan, of course, you are not only able to create different planning masks, you can also create your reports and your dashboards to analyze and to report your data. So in this case, I'm running again my reporting summary as a CFO, where I can see a high-level income statement, balance sheet report, and here at the bottom, cash flow report. All of these financial statements are in a quarterly based created in this view, and I can also, of course, see my whole fiscal year number for the financial statements. If I want to have a deeper look, I can select my income statement here, and we can now see some more positions of my income statement, and again now in a monthly base. And here I can now see, for example, for Germany, that I have now a currently revenue of 50.3 million euros planned. To show you how the data is linked together, I just want to go back to my revenue plan as a country manager. I want to make some high assumptions, like 5,000 units in June, for example, and maybe 3,000 in July. And if I go back now to my income statement, we will see instead of 15.3 million, we have now 16.1 million for the whole year for Germany. So in Anaplan, you don't need to run any processes, actions, procedures, or whatever to link your data. As I mentioned before, you have always your real-time data view, and by creating easily mappings in your planning masks, you can always see with these calculations and these mappings how the data is calculated, and of course, in this case, how your income statement is affected by making these changes for the revenue plan, for example. What I also want to show is some kind of an what-if analysis. We have also heard before in the circumstances times we are living at the moment. You always need to be agile, and you need to run different simulations on your data. And here's just a quick example of a what-if analysis. So we have here our budget, which we have planned. Here again, we have our 60.1 million in revenue we have planned for Germany. We have a scenario where we have a very high number of 65 million, for example, and we can see here the variance of it. And of course, by using drivers, so for example, my salary drivers, we can now work with these what-if analysis. So we have here some salary drivers which we can use for the different versions. And for example, if I want to change my health insurance from 8% to 16%, you will see again immediately after I click on the enter button, the change here in my salary area, where we have here again a new variance, in this case of 700K for this scenario. So with this type of what-if analysis, you can always have different scenarios, different simulations on your data to see the effect by different impacts. To speak about the workforce planning, what we also heard before, I am now running an example of a cost center summary. So I have here some OPEX costs, which I can now analyze in a more detailed way. And for example, for my revenue, which I've defined, I want to hire a new person to realize this new revenue, which I want to make in the next year. For that, I'm deciding to hire a person in a marketing department to get more marketing activities, to get more customer for my products. By selecting my department marketing, I can now see my employees here. So I can see now that I have already 3 employees in my marketing department. I can check the current role of these persons. If I want to make a movement in my organization, I can select it here. And what I also can see is some type of more detailed information, like a start date, and if it's defined a term date. I can also see some insights into this person's with salary informations, and of course, again, this is something what you can cover with your security. So not every person can see such sensible information. So you can decide which role can see which information, and especially here at the bottom where you have your employee expenses, you can decide who can see such type of information. So, for example, we can see our salaries, bonuses, retirement payments, and so on. To plan my new employee now, I have the possibility to add a new employee here directly on this sheet. So I can now enter it here on my in my marketing department. As I said before, I want to have a new marketing specialist who should start next month, for example. I don't want to override the salary, which is defined for this specific role. I don't want to select a pension. Of course, you can do if you want. But what I want to do is to define an FTE. So this person should be a full FTE. With that given, I have now a new employee planned. And as you can see, this is not approved yet. And for that reason, I will now contact my manager. And for that, I will use a comment function of Anaplan, where I can start a chat with my manager. Again, in this case, it's me myself, where I can say please review. And when I hit enter, you will see here at the bottom, at the top area, that there will be now a notification. So my manager will get now a notification that there is a new message, and he can directly jump into this area. To simulate this, I will go into my approval step, where I can see now as the manager of this person that there is a new employee planned. I can see all the relevant information, and if I want to, I can approve this one. And if I go back, we can now see that this person is planned now correctly and approved. Yeah, and to end up my demo, I want to run a management report as mentioned before. And with this management report, you can create your reporting packs directly here in Anaplan. And this is also very similar to PowerPoint slide decks you may know from your current systems. So you can create all the different slides which you already would create in Anaplan. In PowerPoint, you can create in Anaplan, like for example this executive summary. But the biggest benefit of this is that you of course are still connected to your data. So for example, if I change my region, you will see that the numbers of course will also change here. If needed, we can export these to PDF and send this out as an email to all people in the audience, for example. And if you want to do, we can run a presenter mode like this. And of course, we can still change the selectors here. To give you just some impressions how this can be, we have here in KPI dashboard with some KPIs about our Germany country. We have our income statement, for example, where we have again our revenue, for example, of 16.1 million for our fiscal year 21. And as a comparison, we have our last year with 2.4 million, for example. With that said, just a quick wrap up. So we did our top-down target setting as a CFO for revenue. We did our bottom-up planning for the revenue. We did our workforce planning, and we saw this management reporting. And of course, these are just some examples from an FP&A perspective. If you want to have deeper insights, or maybe if you're interested in different use cases like a supply chain, or maybe a sales performance management, or whatever you need to do, of course you can contact us for that. You will see the contact slide here. And with that said, I want to hand over back to Dirk, to cover our Q&A session.
Serkan, thank you very much for this quick introduction into Anaplan. I would ask you to stay and also stay sharing your screen, because one of the questions I got would be regarding to you. So just two questions to John and Andrew maybe. One would be regarding the implementation time of the project, and the other, which impact had Anaplan on your budget process time.
So the implementation took 4 months, which was a big advantage to us, and we did it with an initial 4-day session where we built out all the user stories and topics and processes with Bedford Consultants, and after that we had 2-week sprints followed by some user acceptance testing and so on. But we were able to do that all within 4 months, which was amazing. And regarding the budgeting itself, we brought it down from, I think it was 4 months, Andre.
Yeah, it was. I would say we brought it down from. I mean, the whole process in the past took very long, nearly 3 months, depending where you start. But we brought it down to 5 weeks with budgeting, with review session, and doing the adjustments and going through different versions within the 90 countries. So that was the, I would say, the 2 topics which were super key for us. We needed to be much faster and not keep the company busy for a quarter of a year in planning instead of selling.
Yeah, thank you. This might be the best summary you could give. One quick question to Serkan. Would it be possible to have a just quick view on the workflow process in Anaplan?
Yes, of course. We have also heard it before in the interview part. This is also, of course, one of the biggest benefits of Anaplan, that you can set up a workflow for that. So you can create a workflow with your complete planning process. So in my case, it's still the planning process on the country level, which we see here. I can define different status which this process can have. So, for example, I can see for my region Germany that 6 of the planners did not start so far, 55 are in progress, and that there is no one ready to review and to complete. Of course, we can also make it in a more granular way. So we can do it by departments to stay in this demo model, where I can say, see, for example, in my sales department, 3 of 5 are not started, 2 of 5 are not in progress, and as we saw before, no one is ready to review and to complete. And of course, this is just an example, so you can define the workflow on which level you need it. You can do it by product, you can do it by cost center, by customer, whatever you need to plan in your planning process.
Thank you, Serkan. I think there are no more questions, and we are just good in time. So I would like to thank all of you just joining our discussion here this morning. Thank you especially for you, John and Henry, for your time. Thank you for your trust in Bedford Consulting in choosing us as your partner. Thank you also for choosing Anaplan. Good luck with all the things you do and with all the things you plan. And Henry, have a good selling. Yes. So thank you so much, and happy to see you again, maybe in this session.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.